But she said I'm a professor. It's the summertime. I'm not a professor. I'm just going to tell you guys a story. I love the Ocmulgee River. I paddle it. I've paddled the whole thing almost twice now. And great. I got tons of stories, and I'm not going to tell you any of them. Instead, I'm going to tell you the story of Ray. Ray, the daughter of the guy that ran Otis's Pond for years and years here in Macon. Ray, who, when her dad died of brain tumor, really screwed up his pawn shop. She was losing the pawn shop. The deputies had padlocked the door. The business was going under. And this one thing that her dad loved most in the world, she couldn't keep in the world. And so she needed some peace. She needed to find some peace on the river. And so she goes to the Ocmulgee River up below Jackson, about 40 miles above Macon, the wildest, roughest, nastiest part of the river, the only part of the river with any fierce rapids on it. Really rocky section. The way she gets up there, she goes down to the pawn shop. From a block away, she sees a deputy's car sitting in front of the pawn shop. She knows what's happened. She knows those foreclosure papers are coming anytime. She doesn't even go to the store. She goes around the back block. She goes, and there's a canoe there, a kayak there on Hawk. And she drags it under the chain link fence, And she calls a friend of hers, drops her truck at the bridge at Highway 83 up there, the Jackson, the Butts, Jasper County line. Has her friend take her in her boat up above those fierce rapids. And Ray, who has not paddled whitewater, in probably 15 years, she's going to find relief on the river. Maybe she's going to get all chewed up in those rapids. Maybe she's not going to come back. And the way she's feeling right then, that would pretty much satisfy her. All she can think about is her dad and how she's let down his memory and all that. So she gets on the water, and the water is high. It is freaking all over the place. She gets down to, you guys know where 40-acre Island is? It's the Seven Islands area of Ocmulgee. They call it 7 islands, but it's like 15 islands or 20 islands, depending on how you count. It's rocks everywhere, breaking waves, sluice holes that you can get caught up in, and that kind of thing. She gets to 40-acre Island, the biggest of those islands, and she sees that the channel over to the river left of the island, which you usually can't run because it's too shallow, because it's high water, it's plowing through there. Now, she knows better than to run it. There are rapids. You can't get a boat whole through there, but she's past caring, And when the river pushes her that way, she goes that way, and it is hell on wheels, man. It's so tight a channel that the branches of the trees reach all the way across it. It's like shooting down the tunnel of love, except it's so dark, And the boat gets battered and bashed. She comes down to the end of that island. Sneak Rapid is right there at the end. It's the worst one, right? You don't even see it coming. You're going down the river, and like 5-foot drop. So she comes to that point of the rapid, and she knows it's there. She knows it's coming. She's kind of hoping high water maybe won't be so rough, right? And just before she hits that drop, she looks at the end of 40-acre Island. And if you've been up there, there's 40-acre Island, which kind of has a drop off at the end, and then there's this big rock below that drop off above the worst rapid, class 4. And there is a kid standing on that rock in the middle of the river. An 8-10-year-old kid. Crazy. Not wearing a bathing suit. He has cut off overalls on. And one of the overall straps, she can see this from the river, it doesn't even have a button. It's got some sort of big safety pin holding it on. The kid is sunburned, got a mop of hair. He's staring right at her. And she does the worst thing you can do in the middle of a class 4 rapid. She stops paddling because she sees this kid and damn, she's in it. The boat rolls, she plants the paddle, she rights herself, and she fights her way through the rapid, barely conscious of the rapid. She's so conscious of the kid, right? But anyway, she gets through the rapid, she goes down 3 more drops, she gets down there to the bottom of Smith Shoals, and she pulls the boat back around and looks back up, and there's the kid watching her from the rock. Now, what do you do in that situation? You can't leave the kid on the rock, right? I mean, She's in no situation to get a kid out of there, so she stays at the bottom of the rapid. She starts looking around. Where's mom? Where's dad? Where's his uncle with his, his fishing hat covered with woolly buggers or spinners or something? There is nobody there. There's nobody there. So she waits, about 20 minutes. Whole time, the kid's just staring at her, So finally she realizes, I'm going to have to do something about this. She sees storm clouds piling up upriver. It's getting really dark. So she parks the boat, pulls it up on a rock, and she starts climbing up the rapid. I don't know if you've climbed up a class 3, a class 4 rapid lately. It's a really difficult thing to do in high water. But she weaves her way up the rapid. It takes her 20 minutes to get back up there where he is. And she's finally, from me to this table, right across from him, right? Here he is on the rock. And she's talking to him. She's saying, "What's your name?" He's not saying anything. He's just staring at her, right? She can't get him to talk to her. She's not surprised. A young kid like this, maybe he's 10 years old. She sits on the rock, and to calm him down and to get him to talk to her, she says, there used to be a monster up here on this part of the river. The Indians talked about him all the time. He's called Scabfinger. He was a person. He sounded like any other person. He might sound just like somebody you knew. He'd call your name in the dark, and if you answered him, he'd come to you. You'd think it was your buddy, and then he'd stick that finger up there, and he'd turn to stone, and it would shoot you in the heart, stab you in the heart, and that would be the end of it. That's not the best story to tell a kid to put him at ease, right? But then she starts telling those stories. She remembers all these stories. Her dad, Otis, who owned the pawn shop, dead guy, he lived for the river. He told every story in the book about the river. He told stories about how if an osprey wants to date another osprey, the male osprey will swoop down, catch a fish, fly up really high, drop that fish, and if the female osprey catches it, they're married. And it's permanent. Now, if she doesn't catch it, or if she catches it, sniffs it, doesn't like it, drops it, that's the end of the deal, right? She tells the kid that story. She tells him the story of the water cooler that the Muscogee said lived up at that part of the river. She tells story after story. And finally, the kid looks like he's beginning to relax. And she says, "Look, boy, there is a storm coming. You cannot stay here. We can't be out here in the middle of this river if there's lightning, if there's thunder and lightning. Will you go with me down the river?" And he nods once. So now she's got to get the kid in a kayak, right, in front of her, in the cockpit in front of her. She has a piece of line that she's brought up with her from the kayak. She ties that onto her PFD, and she puts the PFD, the personal flotation device, on the little boy, right, gets it as tight as she can, and they start down the rapid, kind of sliding down the rocks. They stay out of the main drops in the rapid. They get back to the boat. They start down. All this time, the storm is right behind it, the thunder. She can hear it coming. Well, they move down the river. She is looking constantly along the bank to see if there are any parents there. No parents there. No signs of anybody that she knows. And they start passing these old ruins. If you've been up to that part of the river, you know the old Omogie Mills used to be up there on the Butts County side of the river. There's a big mile-long sluice that used to run water from the river to a mill before the Union troops burned it. She sees that sluice. She tells the boy the story of the sluice. She's telling him all these stories that her father told her, right? So she goes, she tries to slow down before she gets to the boat ramp where her truck is waiting, where she's going to have to figure out what to do about this kid, right? Whole time he says nothing, doesn't talk at all. Well, finally, the boat ramp is looming up in the distance, and she's been so involved with the kid, she's not really paying attention to anything. She noses the boat up to the ramp, jumps out, pulls it up a little bit, and she runs up to the top of the ramp to her truck. Who does she see at the top of the ramp but the deputy that was at her dad's pawn shop that morning? And she says, "Damn it, he's going to serve me with the papers. This is a foreclosure. This is where I lose my dad's shop." Deputy gets out of the patrol car, and it's Jack. Jack is the guy she went to prom with 20 years ago. Now, I don't know how to put this. I don't think Ray would mind me saying this. She doesn't really like guys. You know, I mean, that prom date was a disaster as far as she was concerned. So she sees him. She thinks he's going to serve her the papers. She remembers that awful experience at the prom, and she turns and she's going to run back down to the river. And he says, "What, Ray? Wait, Ray. No. It's not what you think it is. Not what you think it is." But when she gets back down to the river, the kid is gone. He's not there anywhere. The boat is still right there where she left it sitting. He was in it. The PFD is laying right there on the seat. So she's looking upriver. She's looking down there. She's saying, hey, kid. She can't find him anywhere. Well, Jack is up at the top of the ramp. He says, Ray, listen, we padlocked your store this morning, but before we padlocked it, I got in there, I got your dad's old safe out, okay? And there's some stuff from the safe. You know, wanted you to have that before everything in the shop got claimed. Well, Ray goes up to the squad car. Jack gives her this old cardboard box. And it's got mostly junk in it. It's got a zipper bag full of coins. It's got an old .32 revolver with a broken firing pin on it. It's got some old Confederate money, that kind of stuff. Not anything she could really do much with. She still is expecting, you know, to get those papers at some point. So Jack says, just wanted you to have it. I got to head back to Macon. You can't tell anybody I gave you this. Yeah. So he gets back in the squad car. She takes the box over to the tailgate, plops it down. She puts that revolver back in there. And then she notices there's a little plastic bag at the bottom of the box. You know, she pulls it out of there and she opens it up. And it's all these old photographs, you know. And she barely remembers her mom at all. And there's her mom in this little pillbox hat, you know, in this incredibly short little dress that she ran off and married Ray's dad in. You know? She sees that and she says, oh my God. And so she starts flipping through the photographs and she sees pictures of her on a rope swing on this very river when she was, you know, 7, 8 years old. She gets to the last picture. And it's a picture of father when he was 10 wearing some old cut-off overalls with one button missing and a little safety pin holding the strap on, mop head, very image of the kid she just paddled down the river. Now, was that her dad? I don't know. Maybe that was her dad. What does Ray say about it? Ray says her dad gave her a chance to give back all the stories that he gave her. You know, if that kid was her dad, he gave her this chance to see that the store was not the only thing of his Ray had that Ray could keep. So Ray found some peace on the river that day. Thank y'all for listening.